What is up, guys? Kowalski here from Temple to Airsoft. I have another Polar Star tutorial for you guys today. I will be showing you how to install the brand new Polar Star UGS or Universal Gas Stock on a VFC body here. This is the Type 2 UGS, where the Type 1 is for mil-spec lowers, which threads directly into the lower itself. But we'll be using what is called a TM spec, or VFC is TM spec, so we'll be installing that today. This is my Airsoft Junkiez custom M4, which is a VFC based, all with PTS furniture. Very awesome gun. You can pick it up in their pro builds. So huge shout out to our friends over at Airsoft Junkiez. But without further ado, we'll get rolling into the UGS. So you go ahead and open up the box. You will have a quick start guide from Polar Star. This gives a little information on the UGS. Can tell you where you can find the full installation instructions, which is on their website. There's a lot of diagrams on there. It gives you a little information on how to adjust it, tournament lock, and just some simple maintenance of the UGS itself. Go ahead and put that to the side. So in the box, you have the actual fitting itself. This is the regulator. This is where the tank screws into, and this is the part that's actually going to go inside the body itself. Here is the stock arm that connects to the end of the gun. And this is where the stock will come into play. This is the stock that came with the unit. This fits over a 13 CI tank. I'll show you guys here. Fits right inside like so. And also included in the box itself, there's some installation materials. You have some washers and the nut here, which will go over this part here and screw in. This will actually tighten the entire unit onto the body of your M4. I'll put this stuff aside. So there is some modification that is going to be needed. You guys will see this information on Polar Star's website. First thing is you have to modify the gearbox, and then also you will have to drill out the hole on the back of the body itself using a 3/8 inch drill bit. So two things you have to do for the VFC is drill out the lower, and then obviously modify the gearbox. Now, on Polar Star's website, they give a diagram on where exactly to cut. So what you'll do when you first go to install this is take your gearbox out of the body, remove your engine, or if you're starting this from brand new, completely strip all the AEG parts except for your trigger and your selector plate here, and the safety mechanism to install your unit. So there's no exact measurements on the Polar Star documentation, but this I've gone ahead and outlined on my gearbox here where I'm going to cut. Now you guys can use a Dremel, you can use an angle grinder or a cutoff wheel. I'm going to use a scroll saw because that's what I have. And you can also just use a hacksaw. It'll probably take a little bit longer, but definitely get the job done. Recommend obviously putting some screws in the gearbox and just make one cut, and it'll be even on both sides, so you don't have to have any issues lining it up. From the top here down, just to give you guys a little bit of reference, this is about 1 inch, and from this side to the back of the gearbox is about 2 2.25 inches across back. So it gives you just a little rough estimate, but you can look basically on the documentation on Polar Star website it's just a little bit past this screw mark here, and then down, and just make sure it's above the this screw hole here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this off camera, and I'm going to cut this down and make the modifications to the lower, and I'll jump right back into the video and show you guys what to do once that's done. Alright guys, so once you finish doing the modifications to both your gearbox shell and your lower receiver, this is what you're going to end up with. So your gearbox shell is going to look like this now. You're going to have basically the back half of the gearbox shell gone on both sides. Needs to be both sides. And then also the where your buffer tube went, the hole back here was enlarged to 3/8 of an inch using a drill bit. So the next step that I would take is I've already put the I have an F2 in this system, so this is only compatible with the F2 jack or F1, just an FYI. I've already taken the liberty of putting the system back in, putting the board back in, and the trigger assembly itself. And also I trimmed up my airline properly to match the fitting that's going to actually stick inside the gearbox. This is why I need to make that cut to allow for room for it. So what I would do is I would measure out your airline to the back of the gearbox and basically just cut it off. And then what you're going to do is you're actually going to assemble this pretty much fully, put it into the lower receiver, and then mesh up where the unit itself is going to basically come in contact with the airline. And this brass piece right here that I fitted on is actually, it comes off of this of the unit right here. So you can pull that off, doesn't take any effort, but you will need to press this into the macro line once you cut it to the correct length. Now I suggest using a heat gun. If you don't have a heat gun, a hairdryer will work. Please don't use a lighter or any sort of flammable source, as you cannot control the heat that well. And take your time pressing it on onto the barb there, because you don't want to mess that up. And if you don't have any extra macro line, you could actually damage this opportunity, the first opportunity of installing this. So once you've gone ahead and measured that out correctly, I'm going to basically reassemble my gearbox here. If you have a longer wiring harness, you can coil it up inside the gearbox. I've done this for a couple of builds for our team, since we didn't have any short wiring harnesses with us. So you can go ahead and coil it up, but I also have one of the shorter 7-inch ones that I'm just going to put in its spot. So I'm going to go ahead and reassemble the gearbox fully and run the wiring harness at the bottom towards the grip of the gun, like so. Alright guys, so now what you can do is you can go ahead and put your gearbox into the lower receiver. Okay, so once you have the gearbox inside your lower receiver and have the 2 pins in place, what you can do is start to fit in the unit itself. What you'll need to do is take this nut and slide it over the airline like this, because this is actually going to connect. You need that to be one piece. For those of you who don't have a sling plate, you would just go ahead and line up the stock piece like so, and then place the unit. But since I have a sling plate, I'm gonna put that there. The actual stock will go next. Kind of just hold that in place, and then the unit itself will slide between the stock bracket, and then it will slide on top of the your sling plate if you have one. So what you can do next is go ahead and see how this lines up, and it creates a slight little arc. You're gonna have to pull this back, and you can actually have the unit back the unit out a little bit. And push it on just like that. Okay. So what you can do is then, I know you guys can't see, but just go ahead and slide the nut down. So you can begin hand cranking the unit to tighten it up. Just like so. And you can slide the castle nut down so the stock's not super wobbly. Okay. So from here, this is just a hand tighten perspective of what you're going to see. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to tighten this up using the crescent wrench, and then I will be right back when we can actually start testing functionality of the UGS. Alright guys, so once you have everything tightened up, you can go ahead and throw your accessories back on, your pistol grip, your magazine catch, fake bolt catch, all that good stuff. I've already plugged up my FCU here, which is now run through the pistol grip. Plug in the batteries, make sure everything's working as far as the selector switch goes. And from here, we can basically test the functionality of the UGS. What you're going to do is you can move this bar down. You can take your 13 CI tank, screw it on. You will hear it pressurize. And there you have it. Go ahead and give it a couple test fires. Full auto. That's semi. Awesome. And the way you adjust the regulator, there's no gauge. So basically you'll just have to do this by going over to a chrono and seeing what you're shooting. There is an Allen key right here at an angle, and you'll be using a 3/32 Allen key. To the right increases PSI, and to the left will decrease PSI. Now every time you turn the screw, you will need to fire for it to reset the regulator to the new PSI. So from here, we can go ahead and put on the include stock, slide that over, and there you have it. There's the fully assembled UGS on a VFC lower. There are other companies that make a smaller tank, so the stock can actually slide in a little bit further if you want to be closer up onto the gun. And there is also another company that makes a different stock, so instead of having the butt plate back here, it actually comes in contact with the back of the tank itself, which makes it feel shorter, but it doesn't have the bulkiness of this stock. So if you don't like this style stock, there are other companies that make it, and I will put those links in the description below once I do a little research myself, but I have seen them at Polar Star, and obviously Polar Star had that style stock at SHOT Show, and we're showing that off. So there you have it, guys. I will be using this gun hopefully this weekend if the weather holds up. But other than that, if you guys have any questions, post them below. Hit us up on our Facebook at Temple Airsoft, and let us know what you think. Thanks.